This is my uncle. I've always known that he was into surfing, but I never had the opportunity to go surfing with him. Until one day, I found out about a promise he had made to himself when he was my age.
I was paddling out with this other older gentleman, and as he was paddling out, we just started talking, and he was a really nice guy. I found out he was a doctor, and he told me he was 60 years old. I thought, this was great, a 60-year-old surfing. And I thought at that time, I just thought to myself, I'm going to go surfing when I am 60 years old.
Hey
Uncle
Scott,
Lynn.
how are you? How's it going?
Good to see you.
You too.
Ready to do a little surfing?
Yeah, I'm excited. How are the waves?
Waves, well, let's go check it out.
Still got the birthday stuff up.
Yeah, big 6-0, you know? Yeah, let's check this out here and see.
Actually, I started surfing in 1963, probably the summer of 1963. I was able to afford a board. And so my first place that I ever surfed was a place called Tanks. It was high tide, or super high tide. We went out in the morning. This buddy and I, we went out together. We ate a lot of donuts, ate a lot of drank orange juice. We puked all over our boards, you know, but that was my first time out. And then we started surfing more regularly at a place called Mondos, which is a real slow break. And it was a place where I was able to learn. There was a bunch of us. We worked at Chicken Delight. So all of these buddies would surf together, and we surfed at places like Stanley's. We surfed together at C Street and California Street and Ventura. But I delivered Chicken Delight. And so that allowed me, it worked at night, so it allowed me to have the morning and afternoons to surf. And I'd pull into Chicken Delight. You probably don't even know what Chicken Delight is today, but Chicken Delight was a big franchise in those days. And so I'd pull in, wet and everything else, change into some clothes and go to work, and do deliveries for Chicken Delight. But basically, I lived to surf. That's what I did at that time, and it was everything.
Singing all your precious songs. Was it something that somebody said? Whoa, keep it rolling on. Keeper of the shop is closing up too soon. At least you narrow at the heavens, You'll be back soon. Presiding over me, yeah. Oh, sweet, don't you force me back, down, down on my knees, down on my knees.
Living at the beach at C Street, I'd surf 365 days a year. I was there every day. And I didn't care whether there was small surf or big surf, I was going out. The surf scene was pretty bad, especially in Ventura at the time. And they actually had a house called the House of the Rising Sun. I mean, it was basically a house of prostitution, and it was really at that time that we were in a transition between just drinking parties, into drugs was a whole new thing, and they would be divided up between those who were drinking and those who were doing drugs, and I stayed away from the drugs. I'll say that part, but I didn't stay away from the drinking scene. I mean, I was into Red Mountain. I mean, I was whatever we'd get our hands on, we would do.
Volkswagen.
Yeah, panel van. It's all red. White stripe around it. Those were the days.
My life outside of surfing consisted of whatever job that I had. At that time it was Chicken Delight, but then there was also, I was going to college. And at the time I was going to college primarily because I had to stay out of the draft. And Vietnam was a big deal at that time, and so I made it a point to stay in school. But my schooling really suffered because I was on some cases I would go to school in the morning and then I'd go down and check out the surf to see what it was like. And I would say, well, I'll just eat my lunch down there and watch them. Next thing I know, I'm out in the water. So eventually what happened was I had to look toward what am I going to do, because I can't stay in school any longer, and I started thinking about, I don't want the draft, so I joined the Air Force. And in fact, my father was involved in motion pictures, so I thought, I'm going to get into motion picture in the Air Force. And so I got in and went through basic training, and I actually ended up getting into motion picture in the Air Force. And so I began my training and everything. My training took place at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, and then I got orders, and I got orders for Southeast Asia, and I thought, this isn't right. I signed up for the Air Force because at that time supposedly it would keep you out of Southeast Asia. Well, I ended up having to go to Fairchild, which is up in Spokane, where I went through escape and survival. Went through concentration camp training. From there I went to the Philippines for jungle school survival. Then I went from there to remember landing in Tan Son Nhut, which is right in Vietnam, and these guys are coming on the planes with M16s. I'm going, this is really scary. This is serious. Here's a guy who surfed every day, for 365 days. He was just living this very easy life and enjoying life, working at Chicken Delight, And then now, I'm in Tan Son Nhut. I am right near Saigon, and then I get in a plane. I see this hospital plane. I'm thinking, this is really different than what my life was like before.
Boy, this is nice. Yeah, this is great. If we had boards like that, I would have gone surfing a lot more. Remember times carrying those heavy boards long distances up there.
Later on, I got orders for where I would fly out of a place called NKP, which is in northern Thailand, and you fly over Cambodia, and in choppers. They're called the Jolly Greens, and what they wanted me to do was to film pilots being actually by cable being brought up. After they'd been shot down, they were in. So what pilots would do, they would gravitate to the higher elevations, and so the choppers would come in and they would drop the cable down, and then So my job was to film them as they're coming up the cable. Well, those choppers go down once a week. About one a week would go down, and they always take flak, and flak is just bullets from ground fire. And so when I got my orders for a month, I would be up there doing that every day. And I thought, the chances of me getting shot down are pretty good. And there was another guy who also, his name was Dave McNeil, and he also got orders, same orders as I did. And I said, Dave, we could go up there and we could be shot down and our life would be over with. And Dave said, I know, but I'm ready to die. And when he told me that, I said, what do you mean you would be ready to die? He said, I have no fear of death. And so from that point on, I started asking him every question I can, trying to find out about what it is to be in a place where you would not fear death, because I certainly was a place where I was very fearful with those orders.
Sure hope that surf rack's working. I never just thought about it.
Who knows if they're still up there?
Exactly.
We're going out anyways.
Yeah, we're going out. One way or the other, we're going out. Put them on the lawn there. Got it? Got it?
For about 6 months, he and I had dialogues back and forth, and I would ask him questions. He would listen to all my problems, and we'd sit there on the base at night, and he would talk to me, and he cared about me, and he would listen to me, and he began to explain to me Jesus and what Jesus had done for us, and that he had died on the cross. And there's passages like, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me." And he quoted, "But God demonstrated his own love toward us when we were yet sinners, Christ died for us." And so as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become the children of God. And it took me a while before I was willing to accept that. It took me 6 months until I finally just said, okay. He prayed, and then I prayed, and I invited the Lord into my life. And that was February 11th, 1968. Is when I invited the Lord into my life. And honestly, after that experience, I didn't have that whole idea of not having any fear of death began to become a reality to me.
40 years of surfing, that's all.
No problem.
No problem. Think I can get up, you think?
I don't know.
Yeah. That's the way I used to always do when I was young. Surfing and getting a suntan. Not now. I got responsibilities, not like you.
The thing that impacted me more than anything, the very next day after I invited the Lord into my life, was this whole burden of sin. Prior to being a Christian, I felt so guilty. There was this guilt that I experienced. And I can remember to this day, after the very next day, walking up into our trailer, because we had a motion picture trailer there, and we were walking up the stairs, and I literally felt like I was off the ground. I mean, I was just walking up these steps, and even though I was walking on the steps, I felt like I was off the ground, because this whole burden of guilt, of sin, and I experienced what forgiveness was all about for the first time in my life, and knew how much God loved me.
Foot and a half.
Well, we're waiting again, side by side and tail to nose. Salty breeze is finally blowing. Hef and Haze are charging Marvio. So let the wind be upon your back, and if there's sun, let it shine on your face. Let the rains rip across your path, providing swell to last all of your days. Pablo, please, what will we do? Now we're finally off the leash. A rooster's tail, we simply cannot lose. Finding fish before the feast. Let the wind be upon your back, and if there's sun, let it shine on your face. Let the rains rip across your path, providing swell to last all of your days. Sometimes you're gonna run and run them down just to let them go, let them go. Sometimes it's not that you know.
get any better than this. Suck it up at 60.
Back to the United States, I thought there must not be any real Christians, because my assumption that everybody that went to church, they weren't Christians. Real Christians were people who invited Jesus into their lives, and I wondered if there were even any Christians at all here. And so actually surfing became really, in some respects, insignificant to me at that point, because God became everything, and I really put it on the line for him. I remember there was this gal that I was writing to. She was not a Christian. I was a Christian. I became a Christian. I came home probably in April of '68, something like that. And she was interested in getting married, but she had no interest in the Lord. And I just, that I became very serious. I guess when you've been in a place like Vietnam, Thailand, it's a very serious place. It's a whole lot different than being around here. And so when your life is, I think the same thing with the guys in Iraq right now, or Afghanistan and things like that. All of a sudden you take a much more serious look at life. And I started taking a very serious look at life. I wanted my life to count. And I realized that that surfing was fun, but it really wasn't counting for much. And so for quite a while, actually probably about 10 years, I just put it on the shelf. And I got involved with the things of God, people who were Christians, and I really dedicated my life completely to the Lord. He was everything to me. And so surfing at that point, well, it really wasn't that important to me anymore. Oddly enough, I mean, I still enjoy it today, but at the time, it just did not seem like that. That it's that important. And really, it's not to me today. I enjoy it, but there's nothing like the Lord and serving Him.
And what do you take me for? Am I your fool? You will realize one day that I do not buy into your ways. I just want a piece of you when it's convenient. And will you take away these blues, Lord? I swear that I mean it. It's not the words I say, it's my heart and my heart and my heart that you want. And all you know is right and